That effing sports show, AFC East. We are on the final one. We are in Buffalo. We know how good Buffalo is. 13-3 last year, lost their division playoff game to Cincinnati. Points for second in the NFL. Points against second in the NFL. Last year's losses to division opponents, Miami and the Jets, outlier being Minnesota, but that was an overtime game, so that really could have gone either way. Swept New England and everybody else, but this is something that people may not be taking into account. Yes, they beat Kansas City. Yes, they beat Green Bay. And yes, they beat Miami when it mattered most in a wild card game. But let's look at the rest of the wins. The rest of the wins include the Rams, the Titans, the Ravens, the Steelers in Week 5, Cleveland, Detroit, the horrible Jets, and Chicago. We keep bringing up the schedule. We are breaking all these teams down, team by team, division by division, and the schedule has definitely mattered at the end result. When you look at Buffalo's 13-3 record and you factor in all the teams, not great teams, that were responsible to help Buffalo get that record, this episode right here is going to be a wild ride, Adam Hulse.
You can't beat teams that aren't on your schedule, right? The Bills' schedule was what it was last year, and guess what? There's a lot of teams that had relatively favorable schedules, and not all of them won 13 games. The Bills took care of business when they had to take care of business, and for the third year in a row, they advanced in the playoffs. So I'm just as high on the Bills this year as I was last year. A lot of people don't seem to share my same thought on that. A lot of people see regression for the Bills this year. I'm not really sure why. They haven't done anything to me to say that they're going to struggle this year. So let's see where we're at with the Bills.
A lot of the schedule already figured out because we've already talked about the other division games. We've already talked about the NFC East. Got the AFC West to throw in there to round out this schedule. If you guys aren't really aware, go back and listen to the other episodes. But don't worry, we're going to finish it out for you so you can stick right here as well. In Week 1, they go to the Jets, and it's Week 1. The Jets kind of get a bad deal here of when they have to play them. We gave Buffalo the win against Aaron Rodgers. I'm fine with it. I have no remorse here. As I'm going through these games, I don't really see a lot of remorse because I do think Buffalo is that good. I guess my point is their schedule is going to be a little bit harder this year, as we're going to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bills are a better team than the Jets, period. And the fact that they get to play them in Week 1 in Rodgers' first game with a new team while he's still adjusting on Monday Night Football, by the way. Love the Bills here.
Las Vegas comes to Buffalo for Week 2. I like Las Vegas. I like Garoppolo. I like what they're trying to do down there, but still got to get it all dialed in. They still got to put it together. And so going to Buffalo in Week 2 is not something Las Vegas, I think, is going to be ready for, and Buffalo gets a win in Week 2.
Yeah, I mean, Bills playing at home are going to beat most teams. A lot of it changes also this year for the Raiders, having to travel across the country to go play up in Buffalo. Tough ask for them. I'm going Bills also.
Buffalo goes to Washington in Week 3. The first 3 games, they've had 2 road games, but they haven't really traveled anywhere. They had to go to New York. They had to go to Washington. It's all pretty much right in their backyard. Washington not going to be a fantastic team anyway by all looks of it. And so Buffalo starting off 3-0 against Washington.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing Washington. I don't think it matters where the game is played, when the game is played. They're light years better than the Commanders, and they'll win that game.
I said 3-0. Let's just go ahead and make it 4-0. We've already done the Miami episode. Because it's at home, Miami comes in and takes a loss. Buffalo beats Miami at home.
Yeah, I mean, this schedule is designed for the Bills to get off to a good start, right? It's in their favor, and I think they'll roll to 4-0.
Didn't have to travel much so far. They take a big trip for Week 5. They go to London. They got to play Jacksonville. We already did the Jacksonville episode. You want to listen to it because Adam is so hyped on Jacksonville this year, and I love it. I'm not making fun of you when I say this. I like your faith. You said it in the Jacksonville episode. They didn't catch fire. They are that good.
Yeah, and I truly believe that. I think Trevor Lawrence has arrived. I think some people forget that how Trevor Lawrence was for the second half and the end of last year is what he was always supposed to be in the NFL, right? He's one of the most highly rated quarterback prospects in history leading into the draft. All the things he did at Clemson, everything he did in high school, they started talking about him as an NFL quarterback before he ever even played a game for Clemson. So again, that wasn't a flash in the pan. He didn't come out of nowhere. I think he finally is who he's supposed to be, and that's just who Trevor Lawrence is going to be moving forward. All of that being said, though, I'm very high on the Jags. Go listen to that episode, like you say, if you want to see how high I am on the Jags. I'm also very high on the Bills. These are 2 of my favorite AFC teams going going into this year, and I actually picked the Bills to win this.
I was going to say, with all the accolades that you're throwing Jacksonville's way, still not good enough to beat Buffalo in London. I actually said that they were good enough, so we split here. I give Jacksonville the win in London because it's in London. I do think Jacksonville's good. Those London games, we've talked about the Europe games.
And it's their home away from home, right?
There you go. So Jacksonville wins according to me. Buffalo wins according to you. And in a weird situation, Buffalo does not get the bye after their trip across the pond. It's odd. You don't see it often. I imagine mathematically it probably has to happen because of the way the schedule shapes up. Because of that lag, I think Buffalo loses to the Giants. It's because of that trip, I think Buffalo loses to the Giants. You actually don't have a problem with it. You think Buffalo's fine and gave Buffalo the win against New York.
Pretty brutal break to not give them, that bye there. That's absolutely brutal travel type of situation for that. But the Bills are still so much better than the Giants as long as they can handle that travel, which it is a big ask. That is an absolutely big factor. And against a lot of other teams, I may have picked the Bills to lose in this spot, but not against the Giants.
You talked about how the schedule is kind of shaping up in Buffalo's favor, and we've talked about the travel. Aside from that London game in week 5, home or away, they got to travel to the Jets. They got to travel to Washington in week 3. They got to travel to New England in week 7. They're not putting a lot of miles on the old bus there to do any of these games. And a couple episodes back, if you heard it, the New England episode, you know that we gave Buffalo the win in New England.
Yeah, they're pretty much staying in the Northeast for this entire part of their schedule, besides that long trip out to London, right? So maybe that's the NFL kind of trying to, make up for that rough travel situation by saying, look, that's a rough one, but you're not going far away from home for that rest of the part of the schedule.
It's going to even out as we get through this, so stick around. Tampa Bay comes to Buffalo. We give Buffalo the win. It's Baker Mayfield, guys. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to try and put controversy on it. From my end, Tampa not strong enough take Buffalo out, especially in Buffalo.
Yeah, Baker having to go to Buffalo to play one of the best teams in the NFL, that's definitely a recipe for a loss. I'll take the Bills.
Now, we hit the second half of the season. Pay attention, folks, because it's going to get real fun. Buffalo, in the second half of the season, has to play Cincinnati, Philly, Kansas City. Second tier, they got to play Dallas, Miami, and play the Jets. They've had their fun. They've had their opportunity to get themselves a lead. They better have done well because they're about to get some games. Hopefully, they stayed healthy. And it starts off in week 9 at Cincinnati.
The opening part of the schedule is pretty favorable for the Bills besides that rough travel that we talked about. I have them undefeated at this point going into Cincinnati, but I am going to give the Bengals the win because they're at home. If the game was in Buffalo, I may have gone the other way. So this is the first loss of the season for me for the Bills.
Yeah, we both gave them the loss. We've done the Cincinnati episode. You definitely want to go back and check that one out, not just because of Cincinnati. Cincinnati good enough at home, and I think we probably both agreed. I definitely do right now. It's because it's a home game. This one could have gone either way. Denver on the slate next, but it's in Buffalo. Buffalo just really kind of lucking out here. We've talked about the promise, the potential, the ability for Denver to kind of turn this around. We've also talked about cross-country travel and what it does to teams. Buffalo at home, always tough. Buffalo gets the win against Denver.
Yeah, this might have been an upset spot out in Mile High, right? Again, another favorable situation for Buffalo. I'll give them the win.
Yeah, teams that Buffalo could lose to, but because of where they're playing them or when they're playing them, just working out in Buffalo's favor. Like you said at the beginning of the episode, you can't be mad at it. It's not their fault. It's just the way it plays out. The Jets come into Buffalo for week 11. We split here. I gave Buffalo the loss. I said Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, and mostly that Jets defense are clicking. You said Buffalo's still too strong, especially because it's at home. Buffalo walks away with a win against Aaron Rodgers.
Another situation where at this point in the season where the Jets will likely be clicking much better. If the game was played at New York, I may have taken the Jets here, but in Buffalo, I'm going Bills again.
Circle game, calendar game, probably flex to a night game if it's not already there, and I imagine it probably is. Buffalo at Philadelphia in week 12. No doubt in my mind, without going back and listening to the Philadelphia episode, Philly should win this game because it's at home, and yet we both give Buffalo the win in Philly, which is actually really kind of huge.
Some could say that this is a potential Super Bowl preview type of game. Both of these teams hopeful to win their conference. It's not my pick for the Super Bowl matchup, but anyone picking the Eagles to win the NFC and the Bills to win the AFC, those are not hot takes at all. Those are two of of the top contenders in their conferences. I think the Bills get it done. I think that they're a little bit better. This is one that the Eagles lose.
So we're going to write the word some. I like it. I can do it. Some people might say that. I'm not saying it. I do that all the time, so I'm definitely not mad at you.
They're not my Super Bowl pick.
But they are a lot of people. We're going to see how it all plays out. We get the bye week.
Eagles are the favorite, but they're surely not my pick.
They're not mine either in the NFC. They're not my NFC pick. We'll get to that. Week 13, bye week. Buffalo gets their rest, and they're going to need it because in week 14, they go to Kansas City. It's week 14. We are already looking at the playoff picture. Some people may have it clinched by week 14. It has happened.
Kansas City has the home field advantage. The Bills have the bye week advantage, right? This matchup that's been played, multiple times over the last couple of years has been super fun and super exciting every time these two teams meet. I expect it to be that way again, but in this round at Arrowhead, I'm going to go with Mahomes.
You cannot root against Mahomes at Arrowhead with playoff implications. You just can't. Week 15, they played Dallas. I say that they won. You gave Buffalo the loss because it's in Buffalo. Then they go to the Chargers. Talk about the Dallas game if you want to, but...
Yeah, very important part of the schedule. They have a couple of tough games late here. Their second half of the year definitely more challenging than their first half of the year. That's part of the reason why I picked the Cowboys in this one. The other part of the reason is because I'm going to be at that game, so I will be rooting hard for my Cowboys in that one. The last time the Cowboys and Bills played was on Thanksgiving 4 years ago. I was at that game as well in Dallas. The Bills won. So this is a revenge game for me, which is why I'm taking the Cowboys.
I was wondering if you're going to bring it up. I was trying to gloss over it, folks. I try to get past the Cowboy rhetoric, but I just can't do it against Adam Hulse. And honestly, you make a great point.
Well, because they're going to care about that, right? That I saw them lose last time I was there, so they got to win this time, right?
That's what the Twitter feeds say. And so I think you're absolutely right there. I'm sure that conversation will pick up as we get closer to that game during the season. But honestly, I mean, week 15 is going to be a huge game for Dallas and Buffalo. It's definitely going to have playoff implications for both these teams. I understand why you give Dallas the win. It's Buffalo at home, and I think if it's any other game, you probably give Buffalo the win. But you bring up a good point against Dallas, and it is going to mean something regardless of how it turns out.
It's probably going to be an important game for both teams. Obviously, they're in separate conferences, so not like directly, but both teams will be definitely playing for something at this point in the season.
Week 16 at the Chargers. It is a big road trip. That still holds true. This is a monster trip to make in week 16 with the importance of this game. And I am actually going to give Buffalo the loss here. I'm doing it. There's no reason that I should give Buffalo the loss here. The Chargers are not good enough to beat Buffalo, but because it is in LA, because I do like the Chargers offense, I'm going to give the upset to the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, this is another one of those situations that we've talked about a lot where, in a vacuum, yes, the Bills beat the Chargers, but when you play someone and where you play someone is very important. I like your reasoning for the Chargers, and this is the kind of mini upset that I usually do like to pick because of the travel and because of where it is on the schedule. But for me, I have the Bills coming off 2 straight losses. I don't see the Bills losing 3 games in a row late in the season. I think they're too good for that. So I think they'll right the ship and win the game against the Chargers.
I have no problem with that, and you're probably right. So I will concede that one when we get to the end here, which we know New England, we gave Buffalo the win because it's at home. And in Miami, we gave Buffalo the win to win out because, again, that is going to matter. For them, especially, Buffalo has been able to prove over the last couple seasons that they can beat Miami. They beat them in the wild card game last year. Neither of us really seeing much reason that that's going to change. We end up, I have Buffalo at 11. You have them at 14. You're 14 positionally, not big surprise.
No, I mean, I feel good about 14 wins for the Bills. To me, they are in the clear upper class, not just of the AFC, but of the entire NFL. The only 3 games I had the Bills losing was to the Bengals, Chiefs, and Cowboys, who are also potentially Super Bowl contenders this year as well. So I don't see the Bills stumbling against teams that they're not, quote unquote, supposed to beat. I think they take care of business, and 14-3, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, all your losses are outside the division. They're big teams. They're teams that they could definitely meet again in the playoffs. But the big take here is that is my 11-7. Because you go back and listen to the other episodes. I'm not going to ruin it completely, but 11-7 is a big deal within this division compared to the other teams. And so go back, listen to the other episodes, check out the records, and see where that puts them on my radar. Either way, we have them going to the playoffs. And as I kind of foreshadowed here, you have losses. We both have losses at Cincinnati. We both have losses at Kansas City. And you put the loss for them with Dallas coming to Buffalo. That's going to be a big deal since two of those teams, Kansas City and Cincinnati, are likely going to be their first playoff game.
Definitely playoff type implications. 14-3 is a great record. If you want to see where they stand in terms of the conference, go back and listen to the AFC South and the AFC North. Teams like the Bengals, teams like the Jaguars, teams like the Bills, all looking really good this year. Is 14 wins. You'd think that'd be enough for a top seed, right? But I don't know, maybe not.
Once we get past these next two divisions, we got the NFC North next, and then we finish in the AFC West. So we've only got 2 divisions to go, 8 more episodes, and then we'll round it all out after that. You can get a head up on that. Go listen to the past episodes. Make sure you catch them all. Throw them on in the background. Hear what Adam Hulse has to say. He is an NFL writer over at sportskita.com. Go over there and catch all his content because you don't want to miss it. At Adam Hulse Sports on Twitter. Then head over to at that effing show, EFIN, and let us know what you think about all these games. You can watch these on YouTube. You can go over to the website and stream them all. These are big games. These records are big deals. Make sure not to miss an episode. We're going to see how it all comes down. See you guys next time.